Alrighty. Quick check. And we're live. Okay. So, gonna do a quick patch preview today. Shouldn't take too long. Definitely nowhere near the 4 hours of the patch notes first season. 26 patch 1. God, that took fucking forever. Alright, before we get over the actual patch notes, I want to start by going over a quick rundown of what Froxon set up for the dev notes. So, some jungle changes. They want to redistribute power. Specifically, give some AD champs a bit more power because AP and tanks have been just dominating the meta. This includes buffs to AD junglers like Aatrox, Master Yi, Viego, Tryndamere, who got micro-patched in this current during the current patch, and nerfs to some outliers like Zed and Jace. I don't know if many people know this, especially since most people are low ELO, but Jace has been just dominating the higher ranks. Like meta-defining, apparently. So he's getting nerfs even though he's basically unplayable in low ELO jungle role. Zed is obviously just a fucking monster. He speed clears like fucking crazy. And his nerfs have been a long time coming. Also not the biggest issue in low ELO, although definitely seen him a few times and he's obnoxious. Dude can power clear and then invade you inside your own jungle when you're still level 3 and not 4 yet. And he's level 4 and it's fucking ridiculous. Several of the AP and tank junglers have really benefited from being able to kill epic monsters from increased pet damage. That's one of the things they did at the start of this season. They removed the cap on pet damage, which is what has really helped tanks and AP junglers really do a lot more on epics. Is the cap that was on epic monster from pet damage. Where they otherwise previously lacked DPS to do so, and so they're being tapped down a bit as well. Honestly, I really just think they should start doing custom modifiers on pet damage for just every champ. It just would open up the meta so much if they just did that. Just bit the bullet. Like, they're already customizing every champ's kit, which is way more complex. There's no reason to do that, to make it that complex. Just, like, customize pet damage for each champion. Pet doesn't need to be the same for every single champion. Like, it already does, like, 110% bonus damage on regular jungle camps for every champion. Just customize that modifier. Or technically does 10% bonus damage, not 110% bonus damage, but 110% damage total. But just customize that modifier for each champion individually. It's just way simpler than having to add modifiers to each different ability. That way you can fine-tune exactly how quickly you want them to clear each camp. Because their jungle pet modifier damage will be slower or higher than it for however fast you want that camp to get the camps to get cleared. It just really seems really simple, and like I get why they didn't do that initially. They wanted to keep it simpler, but they've made it more complicated by having to put modifiers on different abilities on different champions. They're technically still doing customizations for every single champion, which is what they'd be doing if they just customized the jungle pet for every single champion for the jungle damage modifier. So, like, and they can leave it the same for epic monsters. The modifier can only exist for regular camps, so they can just adjust first clear. And they can even make it so that it's just, you know, early game oriented and then scales down to normal damage by mid and late games. That way early game clears are the only things that are affected by it. Just seems basic, but moving on. We expected this shift within the jungle role itself. It's going to have ripple effects into pro play, but are waiting to see the outcomes of this before taking larger swings and having junglers hold more dominion over epic monsters is an intended directional adjustment. They really want laners to not have to rotate to epic monsters unless enemy laners also rotate. they or the jungler, enemy jungler shows up. They want to make it so that laners can just kind of have priority in lane, so that the enemy laners can't leave lane and rotate, and basically only need to leave lane if the enemy jungler shows up or whatever. That way, junglers can take early epic monsters solo, and laners can stay in lane doing their thing. Whether or not we'll get that meta is a different story, but honestly, it'll probably get that way in high elo. Low elo is just such a fucking random shit show. Game strategy. One of our major goals with this season was to bring into better balance the 3 major strategic decisions. Sieging, grouping for objectives, and split pushing are all intended to play a part. In 2025, in particular, grouping for objectives was by far the dominant strategy. So the adjustments to tower plates, home guards, minion spawn rate, and nerfs to objective power were intended to change some of this balance. The home guards are really making people lose their shit, but honestly, I think if we just leave it alone for a while, people will get used to it. It's just the change is just shocking in general for most people, especially the higher level players. It's such a massive change to how long it takes people to get back to lane and how quickly you can get back to lane now after you've died. It's just throwing people off. I don't think it's that OP. I think it's totally reasonable, and I think people will stop saying it's OP once they get used to it. I think it's just such a massive shift compared to what it used to be that they're just really thrown off. It seems more OP than it actually... It's OP compared to last season, but we're not in last season anymore. We're in this season, and this season is drastically different, as every new season is. In particular, it was hard to justify hitting tower sometimes without rewards for doing so, and in some situations, champions were ready to hit towers, but there just weren't minions in the right place at the right time to facilitate that, especially in the side lanes. We're curious to see how strategy for this evolves, excuse me, over the course of the season. So that's the quick little notes rundown. Now we get on to the actual changes, which is what everybody's actually excited about. Maybe I should go and do the notes next time. Oh well. Okay, champion buffs. You got Aatrox passive damage scaling going from 4 to 8% to 4 to 12%. That's a reversion to his old numbers. I think that's a little excessive personally, but whatever. And then his Q monster bonus damage is going from 15 to 25. I think that's reasonable, although with his passive scaling, it could be a little different, but early games where the early power needs to not be, so he should be fine, if not a little weak. But still mostly back into being playable in jungle again. I mean, he's still playable, he's just really weak now, so he's not, meta. But I think he'll be, usable to a reasonable degree. Ashe, AD growth going from 3.0 to 3.5. Draven, micro patch on Monday. Q now properly deals bonus damage when attacking right as Draven catches an axe. They made changes, and basically they accidentally turned off some of his Q damage. If he had thrown an axe right when he was catching an axe. Pretty funny bug. Technically not even a bug, it's just he has several different parts of how his Q works and based on when it happens, and they forgot to add the changes to the third part. Master E, armor growth 4.2 to 4.5, Q on hit mod 65% to 75%. Not looking forward to Master E getting buffed. Talia, Q monster damage going from 20 flat on all ranks to 20 to 40. E monster mod going from 1.9 to 2.25. The E mod I know is a reversion. I can't remember what her Q mod used to be, but it might be a reversion as well. Varus, Q base damage 80 to 360 to 80 to 400. Minimum is still a third. W on hit damage 3 to 38 to 8 to 48. 8 to 44. God damn it. I can't speak or read apparently. Viego, attack speed growth going from 2.25% to 2.75%. Q on hit crit ratio going from 50% to 70%. Q, that's his Blade of the Ruined King passive damage on his passive Q. Not the extra attack, just the thing that's like a lesser version of Blade of the Ruined King's passive, the actual item's passive. Q active crit ratio 50% to 60%. That's the active. Champion nerfs. Gwyn. Passive monster cap 5 plus 10%. 5 plus 10% AP to 3 plus 5% AP. That's going to be a pretty big hit in late game. It shouldn't affect really much at all in early game. It should have a little bit of a tiny nerf in early game, but it'll be a bigger hit in late game. Jace, Q bonus damage to monsters going from 50 to 25. That is a big hit. He must have been a massive fucking monster in high ELO, which is what I've heard he was. So he's going to be basically unplayable in low ELO since he was already that way. Lilia, passive monster heal. 39 plus 15% AP to 39 plus 9% AP. Not the biggest deal. Not even at all, really, with all the healing we have now from jungle pets that have been buffed. Q damage 35 to 75 plus 35 AP to 35 to 75 plus 30 AP. The AP was nerfed. Malphite, E damage 80 to 240 plus 40% armor plus 60% AP to 60 to 200. That's a 40 down at every rank. The scaling stays the same. E cost 50 to 50 to 70. Definitely need some Malphite nerfs. W monster mod 2 times to 1.8 times. R cooldown going from 130, 105, 80 to 130, 115, 100. Nunu and Willump. Q cooldown going from 12 to 8 to 13 to 9. W max damage going from 180 to 360 to 150 to 330. Minimum is still 20%. E damage per hit up because it can hit up to 9 times. 16 to 48 plus 15% to 14 to 42 plus 12%. Sivir, armor growth going from 4.45 to 4.0. Attack speed growth going from 2% to 1.6%. Smolder armor growth going from 4.7 to 4.0. He had some micro patch nerfs as well earlier in this current patch. Zed, passive monster modifier damage going from 1.8 to 1.2 times. System buffs, Fiend Hunter Bolts is going from attack speed 40% to 45%. Guaranteed crit damage modifier going from 75% to 80%. So the crits are going to do more than what they were doing last season, but less than the 200%. Because last season we were getting that extra 75%. Crits were 175, and that's what that was basically doing. Bonus damage. Bonus true damage on crit roll going from 10% to 15%. Hex Optics 44. AD 50 to 55. Distance for max damage 700 to 600. I think that's a big buff, but it's still just the same problem that we had with Yuntal Wild Arrows, which is it's a lesser version of Infinity Edge. So champions like Draven that just stack AD can take it, but champions that need attack speed can never touch it because they have to go Infinity Edge, and then they need more utility for the other items, plus the attack speed items as well. They just don't have room for it. With needing 4 different crit items, they just don't have room for Hex Optics when Infinity Edge increases damage by more than... I think this increases up to 10% at max at 600, so when you're getting an extra 40% crit from Infinity Edge, it's... why even consider Hex Optics? And then Bandle Pipes is getting a nerf from... its gold is going up from 2,000 to 2,300. Alrighty, that's it. Thanks for watching.